obscure city is a place where you can find many unique dangers. This is where she works, Cassandra Killjoy, paranormal private eye. Now a teenage girl's father has gone missing, and Killjoy believes that the city's enigmatic protector, the swordsman, is the key to finding him. So Killjoy must face many deadly dangers in her search for the swordsman. Available on Amazon.com.
Even extraordinary cartoons can have extraordinarily bad episodes, and when that happens, you get InepToons. Gargoyles, arguably the best show to come out of the Disney afternoon, which is saying something, as that was a lineup that was packed with awesome shows. Now, those of you who are hardcore Gargoyles fans might be questioning my choice in episodes, as many people feel that Season 3, aka the Goliath Chronicles, is the worst, and Vendettas is from Season 2, when the show was at the peak of its quality. So, here's my reasoning. First, let's get something clear. Season 3 is not bad. It's just not as good as Seasons 1 and 2. Now, why is this? Because the creator, Greg Weisman, and a few key members of the creative team left the show after Season 2, due to some behind-the-scenes BS. Vendettas doesn't have that excuse. Everyone was there when this episode was produced. There is no reason for this episode to be, well, you know what? I'll just let the episode speak for itself. Fanboys and fangirls from Gargoyles, this is Vendettas. So our episode begins in Wyvern, Scotland, on a rainy night, as a police officer on patrol spots a mysterious stranger walking in the rain. The officer politely offers the stranger a ride, but he turns out to be Wolf. Now, who is Wolf, you might ask? Well, for those of you who don't know, Wolf was a mercenary turned TV star who was bored of being rich and famous. So he agreed to hunt the Gargoyles for money, which led to him getting arrested for reckless endangerment. But then he was busted out of jail by an evil android named Coyote, and he agreed to be turned into a wolf mutant so he could get his revenge on the Gargoyles. Currently, he's in Scotland acquiring a magic axe to facilitate his revenge. If anything that I just said sounded weird to you, then you've obviously never seen Gargoyles before. Correction, a magic laughing axe. Anyway, so after Wolf and his new head chopper jack the police officer's ride, we cut to Manhattan 2 weeks later, where we find ourselves in a gun shop? Here we meet our episode jacker for the day. This is Vinnie. He was a one-time peripheral character that had one line.
You just missed him. I think he was heading home.
And Jeff Bennett, who regularly plays Brooklyn on the show, opted to voice this one-time character doing his patented John Travolta impression. In fact, they named the character Vinnie after Vinnie Barbarino, John Travolta's character from Welcome Back, Kotter. Yup, this is the star of the B-plot for this episode. Currently, Vinnie is buying a custom-made bazooka from Mr. Acme. Huh.
Whoever ends up on the receiving end of this baby is gonna get creamed.
Right next to a huge steaming bowl of foreshadowing.
And that's not all. Mr. Acme made Mr. Carter's handle and trigger electronically keyed to Vinnie's palm print, meaning that only Vinnie can fire it.
I don't want nobody firing off Mr. Carter but me.
Mr. Carter?
Yes, even more references to a sitcom from the 70s. You know, for the kids. So we cut to Vinnie walking down the sidewalk carrying Mr. Carter in a giant duffel bag. This doesn't seem to alarm anyone because this is New York and nobody gives a shit. It is through his insane rantings that we learn that Vinnie was also the motorcycle rider whose ride was crashed into a wall by Lexington in the 5-part pilot episode. And before you can wrap your brain around the extreme absurdity of these two random characters being the same character, we learned that the reason he commissioned Mr. Acme to build him a bazooka that only he can fire is so he can also get revenge on the Gargoyles. He just spent a considerable amount of money buying a custom-made bazooka. Couldn't he have spent that money on a new bike? Whatever. Now, I will give the creator some credit here, because as Vinnie hilariously reveals himself to be two completely different peripheral characters, he is walking down a sidewalk packed with other peripheral characters we've seen on the show before, such as Brendan and Margot, and the unnamed jogger. It's a clever little inside joke for those of us devoted fans, and I appreciate it. Meanwhile, some mysterious magical energy is traveling through the city and finds Wolf eating out of a dumpster? What? Isn't Wolf rich? And even if he lost his money, isn't he strong enough to steal food? And you know what? I'm thinking about this too much. Let's move on. So, the magical energy is actually the evil spirit that lives inside Wolf's axe. And it informs him that it has spotted 2 gargoyles a mile to the west, traveling northward. Pleased, Wolf cuts his dumpster diving short to go gargoyle hunting. And thus, we finally cut to our titular characters, as the 2 gargoyles that the axe was referring to turn out to be Goliath and Hudson, who we find in the middle of one of their usual philosophical discussions.
I still can't see why they call it a Big Apple.
No time to ponder the important questions as Wolf cuts in. And thus, an epic brawl begins between our heroes and Furry McGrumpypants on the city docks. Vinnie just drives up on a forklift. How exactly did he track down the gargoyles? Why is he on a forklift? These are the relevant questions that this episode refuses to answer. As Vinnie rants to his oversized gun that is totally not compensating for anything, we learn that he wasn't just a security guard from one episode and the motorcyclist from another, but he was also one of the guards on Fortress 1. When it was raided and crashed by Goliath and Demona on the pilot episode, which means that this happened to him just one day after the motorcycle incident. Bro, there's bad luck and then there's whatever the hell you have. And before you can say accident prone, Vinnie goes to get Mr. Carter out of his duffel bag, accidentally hits the gear shift, shifts into reverse, and falls into the river. Meanwhile, back in the A-plot, Goliath and Hudson attack Wolf with a dual flying spear and knock his flea-covered ass right through the side of a crane. And it seems like our canine criminal is done. But there's a plot twist. The spirit living inside Wolf's axe is actually Hakon. Who is Hakon, you might ask? Well, for those of you who don't know, he is one of the humans who betrayed the gargoyles 1,000 years ago. Specifically, he was the one who shattered and murdered most of Goliath's clan with a mace while they were still sleeping in their stone forms. Which begs the question, shouldn't his spirit be trapped inside the mace that he used to kill the gargoyles instead of this random axe? Well, fun fact, I looked into this, and as it turns out, Greg Weisman felt the same way. Unfortunately, he realized his mistake too late into production, and he couldn't go back and fix it. And as someone who has made similar mistakes during his own productions, I really feel this man's pain. So, in this episode that's already full of ridiculous coincidences, why not throw in one more? Another fun fact, both Wolf and Hakon are voiced by the same actor, Clancy Brown. And in this episode we learn that the reason that they can communicate with one another is because they're related. That's right, the mutant Wolfman is the great descendant of Hakon. Coincidence? I think yes. Hakon then possesses Wolf, which grants him incredible supernatural powers. He shatters the crane to pieces and splits the pier in half. And before you can say, why didn't he just do that from the beginning, our heroes retreat under the cover of the river. Wolfcon also retreats by flying away because he can do that now. Vinnie witnesses the whole thing and is in no way fazed by the destruction, the mutant wolf, or the magic talking axe. Because he's got ranting to do, damn it. Here he talks about the time that I mentioned earlier, when he was a security guard. But the thing about this scene is that the gargoyles didn't do anything to him. What happened was that a gargoyle kidnapped Dr. Severius without him noticing. But that has nothing to do with...
Can you believe it? I got the boot!
What? How the hell was that his fault? You know what? Let's just keep going. So Goliath and Hudson emerge from the river and try to climb up the side of a building to safety, but get tackled through the wall by Wolfcon. And their fight continues inside a factory. Vinnie perches himself atop of a structure and gets ready to fire, but before you can say running gag, Goliath gets slammed into the same structure and Vinnie falls on his ash on a pile of ash. Wolfcon hypnotizes Hudson and tricks him into fighting Goliath by making him think that Goliath is Wolf. The question is, why doesn't Wolfcon team up with Hudson to kill Goliath together? Well, that's because that would make too much sense. Goliath brilliantly convinces Hudson that it's him by telling him that it's him.
Hudson, it's me.
It's Goliath.
Oh, jalapeno. Forgive me, lad.
That worked! Our heroes run to a nearby scrapyard for cover. Back at the factory, Wolf tells Hakon to get out of his body, or he will incinerate the axe.
No! This far from Wyvern, the axe is my one link to the Earth plane. Without it...
Important plot point. Nonetheless, Hakon agrees to his rabbit relative's terms and evacuates the premises. And I know what some of you are thinking. Erod, wouldn't it be easier for them to stay together and use the incredible supernatural powers that they only have when they are united to kill the gargoyles? Well, the reason that they don't do that is because... No time to explain, cut to the next scene! Our heroes make their way through the scrapyard when they are attacked again. But this time the villains divide and conquer. Wolf goes after Goliath while Hakon attacks Hudson. Meanwhile, at that exact same moment, Vinnie is perched atop of a nearby building and even brags about being too far away from the fight to get hit. And before you can say 10 tons of irony, Wolf throws an engine block, hits the water tower behind Vinnie, and the water knocks him off the building and into the back of a garbage truck.
Now that's a real shame when folks be throwing away a perfectly good white boy like that.
Back at the fight, Hudson fights Hakon inside a compactor. Hakon accidentally jabs the axe into the floor of the compactor, and Hudson climbs out as the compactor miraculously activates itself without explanation, therefore crushing the axe, officially sending Hakon's spirit back to the realm of the dead. All that's missing is a cool action hero line.
Get an afterlife.
Goliath defeats Wolf by simply judo flipping him into a stack of cars that collapses and crushes him. And so our episode ends with...
No, not over yet.
Jeez. That's right, Vinnie finally catches up with our heroes, and they do absolutely nothing to deter his efforts. They just stand there and watch him pull the trigger.
Prepare to get creamed!
Yup, that's right. Mr. Carter only fires banana cream pies. Mr. Acme was speaking literally.
Whoever ends up on the receiving end of this baby is gonna get creamed.
So apparently, Vinnie believes that this makes them 100% even for destroying his motorcycle and getting him fired from several jobs. Yup, hitting them in the face with a pie. This is what he spent most of his life savings on. Logical. And so our episode ends with the most meta moment ever, as Vinnie walks away, all the while humming the Gargoyles theme. What? And with Hudson asking the most relevant question in the episode.
Who in the world was that? Banana cream.
Whoop. Oh, and I didn't throw in that effect. That's how the episode actually ends. They iris out like a Looney Tunes cartoon. I can't make that up. Ugh. This episode is admittedly very entertaining, but boy does it stick out like a sore thumb. Season 2 is a brilliant epic odyssey laced with brilliant social commentary, Shakespearean references, Arthurian lore, immersive character progression, fascinating historical fiction, and then there's the episode where some random a-hole hits Goliath in the face with a banana cream pie. Yeah. Now, in the creative team's defense, they went from producing a nice sensible 13 episodes for season 1 to the network ordering 52 episodes for season 2. I can't even imagine the stress the men and women who worked on this show were under while producing this season. And I respect that they might have needed some levity, but I think it's still fair to paraphrase Hudson's question in this episode. What the hell was that? So there you go. I spoke my piece. I have nothing left to say, so I guess there's only one way to appropriately end this. Whoop! Next time on InepTToons.
Stop! a scourge of evildoers!